Welcome to The Explainer. Some moments in Scripture are just on another level. And today we're diving deep into one of the most powerful ones out there, Isaiah's vision in the temple. We're going to break this down verse by verse and really get into what's happening.
All right, so the big question is, what did Isaiah actually see? What was this experience that completely changed the course of his life? Let's jump right in and unpack the sights, the sounds, and the incredible meaning behind those first 4 verses of Isaiah chapter 6.
Okay, first up, verse 1. This whole thing kicks off at a really critical time in history, and the vision, right from the start, is all about establishing the absolute, undeniable majesty of God.
So here it is. What's so cool about this is that the very first line doesn't start with some vague, mystical once upon a time. Nope. It pins this totally otherworldly vision to a very specific, very real moment in history.
And that moment is right around 742 BC, the year King Uzziah died. Now this isn't just trivia, Uzziah had been king for a long, long time, and it was a good time for the nation. So his death, that meant uncertainty. The future was kind of up in the air. And it's right in the middle of all that national anxiety that Isaiah gets this life-altering vision. And think about the sheer scale of what he's seeing. This isn't just a peek behind the curtain. It's an overwhelming, all-consuming presence. The train of the Lord's robe. We're talking about the hem of his garment here. It doesn't just drag on the floor. It fills the entire temple, the most sacred spot on the entire planet. I mean, can you imagine? That single image just screams majesty and absolute power. But it doesn't stop there. The scene gets even more intense because Isaiah realizes he's not alone. There's someone else there, or rather something else. He sees this incredible class of heavenly beings right there by the throne. And these are the seraphim. So what in the world are they? Well, the Bible gives us a pretty specific description, 6 wings. And each pair of wings has a job to do. One pair covers their face in reverence, one pair covers their feet, and with the last pair, they fly. The name itself is a huge clue. Seraph comes from the Hebrew word for to burn. So seraphim pretty much means the burning ones. That tells you everything, right? These are beings of pure light, of fire. Exactly the kind of attendance you'd expect to find in God's presence. And it's good to remember, these guys are unique. In Scripture, we hear about other angelic beings, right? Like cherubim, which Ezekiel says have 4 wings and 4 faces. Or archangels, who are like the chief angels. But these seraphim, with their 6 wings, they're in a class all their own.
So here's a question for you. Are the wings literal wings, or is something else going on? Well, a lot of the thinking here is that they're symbolic. They represent power, majesty, and this incredible ability to move between heaven and earth to get things done, to carry out God's will.
And here's a really interesting thought from the prophet Joseph Smith. He said that angels don't actually have wings. So that kind of supports the idea that the wings we see in art and hear about in visions like this are symbolic language, not a literal blueprint. The wings represent what they do, not what they are.
Okay, so Isaiah's seen these incredible things. Now the vision shifts from sight to sound, and this sound is maybe even more powerful than the visuals. It's a chant, a cry that just echoes through the whole temple, and it tells us everything we need to know about the nature of God.
So they cry out to one another, "Holy, holy, holy." Now in our language, we might just think that's for emphasis, like saying something is very, very, very good. But in Hebrew, repeating a word 3 times like this, that's the ultimate superlative. It's a way of saying God isn't just holy, He is holiness itself, the purest, most set-apart being imaginable.
And get this. This isn't just an Old Testament thing. Fast forward hundreds of years to the book of Revelation, and what do we see? The exact same heavenly chant, Holy, holy, holy. That tells you just how important and timeless this declaration is.
So here's one way to think about it. It's like a pyramid of holiness. At the base, you have the righteous. They're holy. They're set apart. Above them, maybe you have the noble, who are holy, holy, even more set apart. But at the very, very top, that's holy, holy, holy. That's God. He's in a category all by himself, completely and utterly supreme.
All right, now we get to the climax of this whole scene. Because that heavenly chant, it's not just something you hear with your ears. It's something you feel. It has a real physical impact on the world around Isaiah. Just let this sink in for a second. The doorposts of Solomon's temple moved. We're not talking about flimsy little doors here. These were huge, heavy, solid structures. And the voice of just one of these seraphim had enough raw power to shake the entire building. Incredible.
And then the house was filled with smoke. But again, this isn't your normal everyday smoke. Whenever you see this kind of smoke or a cloud filling a sacred space in the Bible, it's a huge sign. It's a symbol that the glory and power of God are physically, tangibly there.
And we see this pattern pop up again and again. Think back to when Solomon's temple was first dedicated. A cloud filled the house so much the priests couldn't even stand. Then look forward to the visions in Revelation. The temple is filled with smoke from the glory of God. It's a consistent symbol for his manifest presence.
So you have to ask yourself, after seeing all of this, after feeling the temple shake and breathing in the smoke of God's glory, how does a normal person even respond to that? These first 4 verses just paint this unbelievable picture of majesty, power, and holiness. And really, this whole overwhelming vision is just the beginning. It's the setup for how Isaiah himself is about to be completely changed. But, well, that's a story for another time.